Okay, so hello everyone. This is Sumit here, your trainer, and welcome you all in DevOps Master Program, which is organized by Networking. And with this program, in today's session, I'm going to talk about all the topics which will be covered, everything which networking is going to provide you, a brief about what networking is, a brief about what this program is all about, and a brief about what you're going to get being a part of this wonderful program. So let's begin quickly. I'll start with a brief introduction about networking by sharing my screen first. So let me quickly do that. Okay. So first of all, I welcome you all again in DevOps Master Program, which is organized by Networking. Networking itself is a big platform which provides wide variety of trainings in various technologies, all the cutting edge technologies which is available in market as of now, which is going to provide high density jobs, which is going to provide high salary jobs, which as of now any of the IT company looks for. And that is what networking is expert into. With being a part of networking, you'll be getting unlimited amount of knowledge for sure. And with this DevOps program, which networking is offering, you'll be gaining lots of knowledge on DevOps, on cloud, and on all the various domains, being a part of which you will have to have great understanding of how IT industry works, how transition of IT industry works, how the change in methodology happens, right? So yeah, let's begin. I'll give a quick introduction about myself. My name is Sumit. I do have 14 years of experience by now. In my experience of 14 years, I have worked around wide variety of technologies, started my career being a developer, then transitioned myself into cloud and gradually moved into DevOps because era was changing from manual approach, from incorporating manual approach to having a automated approach, right? And that is what every IT industry looks for now. We do have AIs, we do have deep learnings, we do have machine learnings, everything. If in short, if you'll see, if you'll think about, everything delves into automation. Everything talks about automation. Nobody wants to do tasks monotonously every now and then. Rather than that, everyone wants to convert the monotonous tasks into automated format, and that is what I'm expert into. In my industry experience of 14 years, I've worked a lot on multiple clients, with multiple clients, and converted and helped them in converting lots of their monotonous activities in automated fashion. With my current role, I'm working as solution architect and providing great solution for various sort of problems, various sort of IT related, infrastructure related issues, which we can work on, which we can talk about, which we can solve by incorporating DevOps methodology. And that is what I'm going to teach you with DevOps Master Program. So welcome you all again. So let's quickly get into DevOps Master Program. Well, I'll talk about various topics which will be a part of this DevOps Master Program. And that is where I'll discuss about all the sections, all the categories which this master program is divided into. So let's get into slide mode. Okay, so we will begin master program, DevOps master program, with a basics of shell. There is a reason why we are starting our program from a basic understanding of shell, a basic understanding of coding, scripting. You know something? We like Windows a lot. We like working on Windows a lot because since very long we always saw fancy screen of Windows. But when we start working into DevOps, when we start working into when we become a part of enterprise level industries, then we do have less opportunity to work on to Windows. I'm not saying that we won't have any opportunity to work in Windows, but the opportunities to work into Linux, Mac will be much wider than working in Windows. And that is where you need to have good amount of knowledge there in scripting, there in shell. You no need to be administrator there in shell. You no need to be administrator therein. No expectations from you will be to know everything about shell, to know everything about scripting. But yes, you must have a surface knowledge about shell. You must have a surface knowledge about scripting, by means of which you'll be able to understand certain automation related components which DevOps offers, which DevOps incorporates in IT industry in software development lifecycle. And that is where this course will be about, which is Linux and shell scripting. This will be first module which will talk about. This module will go around tenure of a duration of 5 hours. In this duration I'll talk about basic introduction. I'll start with the introduction of Linux, what Linux is, because as I said, since very long we have seen all the fancy screens of Windows, but it's the time to just change our mindset from looking into fancy screen of Windows to black and white screen of Linux, right? So with this introduction, I'll tell you what actually Linux is, what Linux operating system is, what are the various flavors of Linux operating system, how various flavors of Linux operating system actually looks like, what you're going to get with the various flavors of Linux operating system, how you want to work on, how will you actually work on Linux operating system, what benefits you will get by working onto Linux operating system. It's been said that Linux operating system is one of the best operating system, which was developed long back, and initially it was a licensed product, but later on it became open source, and nowadays anyone can install as a form of virtual machine, as a form of uh, any of the by using any of the virtual walks or virtualization software, and can work in your Windows too, can integrate with your Windows too, right? So that is what we are going to talk about. In introduction I'll talk about that, and gradually I'll move into shell scripting, commands which you need to know, which you need to work on, being a part of DevOps administrator. I'll give you understanding of how shell scripting looks like, and therein we'll talk about a conditioning which we use in shell, how we will define variables in shell, how we can use shell to create loopings, and ultimate part will be to talk about functions which we will create by using shell, because eventually you want to group together everything, whatever you write code, right? And that is what actually any of the scripting, any of the coding is about. You do not want to write same code over and over again. You want to write a code, and convert in the form of function, and want to use it over and over again later on. And with that I'll end this module, which will be with the functions, wherein you'll talk about repetitive code, right? You will talk about certain code which you are going to reuse over and over again as your code proceeds, as your scripting work proceeds. So this will be your first module, friends. Here we'll talk about Linux and shell scripting. I'll quickly move on to our second module. Now, shell scripting is fine, friends. Is some basic level of or low level of programming language which we talk about. But yes, era is changing now. Time is changing now. There was a time when if you know about shell, if you know about Linux, you are pretty much good with automation. It's like nearly 10 to 12 years back. But things are changing. After Python came, even the demand of Java, even the demand of .NET lowered down. I won't say that it lowered down significantly, but Python has its own remark. Python has its own place. In IT industry, let it be in automation, let it be in coding, let it be in development, let it be in ML, let it be in AI. Python has its own place, because if you know about Python, Python works significantly well along with machine learning, automation, Gen AI. Nowadays, so many AI related components are there, and Python fits in everywhere. And with this module, we will talk about Python introduction. I'll start this module with Python introduction. As you can see, I'm going to spend more time in Python scripting than in shell, nearly double time I'm going to spend in Python scripting than in shell, because it actually requires certain amount of knowledge which you need to have. Herein we'll talk about introduction of Python. Then I'll give you a basic idea about Python installation, various IDEs, various integrated development environment, which actually you need to work on Python. Let it be Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio 2022 or Eclipse or Anaconda or Idle. Lots of tools, lots of IDEs are there by using which you can easily work with Python. And that is what I'm going to talk about in the Python introduction part, and introduction about IDEs which we are going to use to work on Python. Again, similar sort of syntax, similar sort of terminology and methodology like the way we have seen in scripting. We are going to talk in Python too. In Python, I'll start my Python discussion with knowledge about variables, what Python variables are, how to define Python variables, wherein I'll talk about again various sort of conditions which you can use in Python, which you can write Python with. And Python is a fantastic tool, friends. Python is a fantastic language. And by using Python, you can do lots of scripting. Like you can do wide variety of scripting. You can do scripting on Windows, you can do scripting on various sort of platforms by using Python. Okay, so with this we'll move on conditions. What sort of conditions we can define in Python, various sort of conditions, various sort of condition related statements we are going to talk about in Python. And after that, I'll move into loops, looping in Python, how looping works, various sort of loops are there by using which you can just iterate across various sort of lists. We do have mutable items, we do have immutable items, we do have lists, we do have dictionaries, we do have sets. So many different components are there in Python. I'll talk about that in loops section. While going over loops, we'll iterate across wide variety of components which is used there in Python. And again, after loops, I'll move into functions, and that will be the part of the code which will be more interesting one, because you'll learn how to create function and how to create objects from function. As you know, Python is object-oriented programming language, and that is what we are going to learn, how to create an object from any of the code which we write in Python by using functions. After that, we'll switch into classes. We'll talk about modules a bit, and most important thing, exception handling, because we never want to do a code, we never want to write a code which fails every now and then. We want to have a code which works well, which works good in any sort of conditions inputs which user passes on. Think about a scenario: if you are using any of the tool, any of the equipment, and it errors down, it fails because of some abnormal input which you gave, you won't like to work on such kind of equipments, right? You won't like to work on such kind of tools. Python takes care of that. And with exception handling, we are going to learn how to work on various sort of scenarios, various sort of abnormal inputs, various sort of wrong inputs which user might provide, and how Python handles that, right? So this will be your second module, friends. With this module, you'll learn about Python, another beautiful scripting language, and this will help you to enhance your scripting knowledge, which will add to the automation capabilities, automation skill set, your potential to have a automation mindset, right? So that is what we are going to talk about in Python scripting. Now, let's switch into our infrastructure side. Till now, what we have learned about scripting. We saw about automation half. We saw about the half wherein we want to create certain scripting, coding by using Python. But now it's the time to implement those codings, because you will be a part of DevOps engineer team in any of the enterprise organization after passing this program, after this completing this program from networking king. Now after completing this program, friends, when you are being a part of DevOps team in enterprise organization, eventually you will have to start implementing DevOps either in some sort of cloud. So there will be three different domains, friends, where you have to implement your DevOps expertise. It will be either AWS cloud or Azure cloud, or it can be on premise too, or it can be GCP as well. But most prominent and worldwide organization are either into AWS or into Azure or into on premises setup now, and that is what we are going to talk about in our third module. So in with this module will be of 10 hours duration. In this module, we are going to talk about how to mm, implement DevOps on cloud. First, we'll get to know about basics of cloud, what cloud is, what actually cloud vendor provides you, how cloud vendor helps you, any of the organization to grow their business drastically, how things changed from having a data center, a physical data center, to deploy, to provision anything virtually, logically on the cloud, and how multiple organizations, hundreds, thousands, lakhs of organization, which is spread across worldwide now, is using any of the cloud vendor to deploy their infrastructure now. That is what we are going to learn with AWS Cloud or any of the cloud platform. Our next module is going to be even more interesting one with Azure Cloud, but let's stick with AWS Cloud in our third module for now. So the first thing which we'll start with is to get to know about what cloud is and how it helps any business to grow. Post that, we'll get to know about how to create any account there in cloud, AWS Cloud. And there we will learn about having free tier accounts, because eventually when you will create an account, you will have to have certain free tier capabilities also. The capability by means of which you will be able to use AWS resources, AWS services without any cost for a certain period of time. Because certainly, I mean, like, nobody is expecting you to start paying AWS by utilizing their resources, even though you don't know anything, even though you don't know how to use their resources. And AWS respects your that sort of concern, saying which AWS says that you are going to use their resources free of cost for 12 months, entire year, friends, right? And a number of resources we are going to talk about which you are going to use free of cost for a duration of 12 months. That will be EC2 instance, how to create a virtual machine. We'll get to know about various sort of load balancer. We'll get to know about how to create load balances, how to do path based routing, how to create classic load balancer, application load balancer, networking load balancer, what is different types of load balancer, what is type 4, type 7 load balancer, what is which load balancer routes on HTTPS network, which load balancer routes on router based framework. We are going to talk about that. After that, we will switch into storage capacity, wide unlimited storage capacity, which AWS offers by using their S3 buckets. And we'll also talk about the networking components which AWS offers by using Route 53, by means of which you will be able to create A records, and you will be able to create any of the domains where your website can host or enterprise website can host, wherein any of the enterprise website when is hosted requires a certain sort of certification, certain sort of certificate to avoid any hacking, any bugs, because nowadays any of the enterprise respects customer data a lot. Any breach in data causes lots of penalty, which any of the organization is ready to bear. For that, how to control that part, how to create a more strong, robust, secure domain, we are going to talk about that. After that, we'll switch into VPC, which is virtual private cloud, a cloud, uh, virtual cloud within a cloud, which is specific to any of the organization. Because eventually AWS, which is Amazon Web Services, services which Amazon, such a great organization, offers to wide variety of companies in world now. You name the company, and any of the company is using Amazon Web Services. Think about Netflix, think about Prime Video, any of the organization, any of the framework, any of the platform, wide variety of OTT platforms, wide variety of organizations are using Amazon services now. How they segregate their services to big competitors, friends, to big OTT competitors, Netflix and Prime Video, they are putting their data content on Amazon Web Services platform, but they are entirely separate from each other. How they separate from each other, that will be covered in VPC section. How each of the organization maintains their own data in such secure way, we are going to talk about in VPC section, right? And friends, after VPC, we are going to talk about containerization, where world is moving now. There was a time when if we create a virtual machine, we feel as if, okay, we did lots of things. We create a segregation in our bare metal servers, we created segregation in a physical servers, and we created lots of virtual machine, lots of isolated frameworks, lots of clusters, lots of bifurcations on your physical components. But things changed a lot with the advancement of very small applications which we use on our either Android phones, or lots of smaller applications which is available there in our Play Store, or it's available there for our PC or laptop as well, which are of quite smaller size. Things changed from virtual machine, from the usage of virtual machine to even a smaller component to which we call as containers. We are going to talk about that. We do have a well defined session to talk about containerization containers in our upcoming topics. But with EKS, we are going to talk about certain component, a feature which AWS Cloud Vendor offers, by means of which we can create a orchestration platform. The platform using which we will be able to launch our services on containers, on containerized platform, which will be orchestrated, which will be controlled, which will be secured, which will be spread across wide variety of customers, and will be managed by AWS vendor, and will be hosted by AWS platform, on AWS platforms, right? And that is what we are going to talk on EKS as the topic. After that, we are going to talk about even more automated components. As I was initially talking about, change of mindset from a from a monotonous approach, from a traditional approach to more automated approach, and that is where elastic beanstalk fits in. With elastic beanstalk, we are going to talk about how we can achieve automation, how we can have automated deployment of multiple sort of services. Let it be virtual machine, let it be one serverless component which AWS launches, how we can deploy by using beanstalk. We're going to talk about that. After that, we'll talk about notification services, which is another essential component offered by Amazon. And then we'll talk about identity and access management, so that wide variety of users who are using Amazon can have their own identity, can have their isolation of accesses, how we can control and manage accesses. Because eventually, when you will be a part of enterprise level organization, friends, you will have access to AWS platform, which they will be owning, which the organization will be owning. And it's not only you, like you, there can be many other resources who are a part of that organization will be using AWS. How access differences, how access limitations from you to others will be controlled, that we will learn in identity and access management component. And later on, which will be the last part of this module, where we will learn about how to use Terraform to launch certain services in AWS, because eventually we are talking about automation. And if you see the entire framework, friends, which is offered by networking, it's entirely in a sequential framework wherein it starts with a manual approach and gradually it's transitioning into automated framework, because we respect all the candidates concerned being a part of maybe either fractious background or the diverse background, the non-IT background, wherein you as of now till now did only the manual way of deployments, manual way of creation of any resources. So what we do is, and the way this course is designed is, we gradually move from manual approach to automated approach to scripted approach, so that first you get the feel of creating resources, first you start getting into AWS, start learning about AWS component, and then you will know about how to handle it in more automated way by using ICs, right? That is what this course is designed into. And the next module, friend, which is the fourth module, is about Azure, another competitor of AWS. Azure is a big competitor of AWS and is holding up around 30 to 40% of world market now. This course duration is going to be of 10 hours, wherein we'll talk about what Azure DevOps is, an overview of Azure DevOps. He'll talk about Azure subscriptions, how we control Azure subscriptions, what are the different sort of Azure subscriptions we can have, what are the different landing zones we create in Azure by means of which we can have Azure governance. When I say Azure governance, you must have to have certain sort of policies, because you can join any of the organization, friends, and you cannot expect any of the organization to have same sort of freedom, liberty, like the way you work on any of the open source or a free tier subscription or free tier account which you create in Azure. There you have certain policies, certain restrictions. You are not supposed to use any of the public network, because any of the public network is exposed to hacking, is exposed to any of the data breach, which, as I said, none of the organization will be able to bear, none of the organization will be able to handle. And that is what we are going to learn in Azure in this module, wherein we'll learn about Azure networking. And finally, we will move on to containerization part of Azure as well. Quite similar the way AWS offers EKS, Azure offers AKS, which is Azure Kubernetes services, wherein again you will get to know about containerization, though terminologies are different, names are different, different sort of components we are going to create here. But overall, it's at the back end, it's using same tool, which is called Kubernetes. Don't worry, Kubernetes we are going to talk about in our upcoming sessions a lot. We do have a number of topics, a number of quite discussion on it, AKS on Kubernetes left out for upcoming discussions. All right. And after this, we are going to talk about container services, wherein in container services, we are going to talk about what containers are, how, or container repository, where actually your container lives. So on the open source platform, we get Docker Hub. Docker itself is a containerized platform wherein we get containers created by using Docker as a tool with ACR. With ACR, Azure has its own repository where container which we create in Azure platform lives. And we are going to talk about that. We are going to learn that. So first we will create a container. First we will create the basic components of containers, and then we will get to know about the place where container lives, right? First we'll create it, and then we will push it. And at the end, I'll give you a basic idea about databases, friends. There is a reason why we kept this topic, databases, because doesn't matter how good you are in infrastructure, doesn't matter how good you are in platform, but essentially you need to know about, you need to be good on the the data management as well. And with databases, with the overview of databases, which is hosted on Azure, we'll get to know about that. There are a number of databases which Azure offers: SQL, NoSQL, Cosmos DB, MongoDB, different sort of databases which Azure offers. We are going to talk about that, a basic overview of what those databases are about, how those databases are created. We are going to learn on databases in Azure section of this module, right? So friends, as of now, this is the fourth module which we have seen. With this module, first we got into scripting, then we moved into cloud, and two big cloud vendors which is ruling the world now, AWS and Azure, both we are covering in this session. Next will be the understanding of DevOps. Till now you have learned, okay, fine, this is the infrastructure, this is the framework where you're which you are going to use to create your DevOps framework. With this DevOps introduction component, with this DevOps introduction part, you will get to know about what DevOps is, how DevOps term is coined. I'll be talking about that. What was the methodology before DevOps, how DevOps evolved, how DevOps is formed, what were the drawback of methodology which was used before DevOps, right? We'll talk about that. We will get to know about what software development lifecycle is, what are the various phases of software development lifecycle is. I'm pretty much sure as of now, when you are installing any of the software, you are just downloading it from web and you are just hitting on a wizard and clicking on next, 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 and next, and finish, done. But with this course, you will get to know about how those various stages are, by using which actually any of the software which you have downloaded as of now in your PC is created, is found, is exposed, is brought into production network, right? So we are going to talk about that. And after that, we'll gradually move into Agile methodology. It's pretty much important, friends, for you to understand Agile methodology as well, which is a pre-stage to DevOps. As of now, many of the organization are still in Agile methodology framework, and gradually a number of organizations are moving into DevOps methodology, DevOps framework. I'll talk about why organizations are there in Agile methodology, what made them to move from Agile methodology to DevOps methodology, why still certain companies want to stick with Agile methodology, do not want to move into DevOps methodology. We'll talk about that. And gradually I'll give you overview of all the tools which is a part of DevOps, tool which fits on all the stages, various stage which forms life cycle of DevOps. We'll talk about that in this session. This session is 3 hours long. In this session, I'll cover starting from the point where software development lifecycle stage, software development lifecycle thought process evolved, which evolved around 25 years back, no doubt in that. But when it evolved till the time, it has been a drastic change. There was a drastic change. There is a drastic change in software development lifecycle process. What those change is brought in, how those changes brought in, what actually the problems organizations faced before they transitioned from that phase to this phase. Friends, you are going to learn about that in this session. And finally, I'll end up with a quick recap of DevOps on cloud. And it's pretty much important, friends, to have a quiz after each of the session, because that will help you to understand how far you learned about any topic. And that is what we are going to talk about. That is what will end any of the module with. From this point onwards, we'll have a quiz, and we'll provide you certain questions based on which you can judge your knowledge, though these quizzes will be ungraded, but it will help you to understand your skill set, evaluate your skill set. All right, friends, post date will move into another very important thing, which will be version control system, also known as source code management tool. Friends, we do have a number of code, wide variety of code. Even though if you think about any of the HTML page has bunch of lines of code. Where those code lives? Does it live on any of the computer? Does it live on any of the PC, or somewhere on any of the physical server? We'll get to know about that with this session. With this module, we'll learn about how those modules are formed, how those sessions are formed, how those version control systems are created, right? We'll understand that. And we will also talk about how these version control systems are created. Friends, with this, your background of Linux, which you have learned in the first module of Linux, will help a lot, because here, from this point of from this point onwards, we are going to execute a number of commands. Those commands are platform agnostic, that's for sure. If you execute command on Windows, if you execute command on Linux, or if you execute command on Mac, it's not going to change for sure. But having a Linux background, having understanding of Linux commands or scripts will bring you already the mindset. You will already be warmed up and will be able to execute any of the Git related commands pretty much easily. You will be able to flow from one folder to another folder, one directory to another directory, and you will be able to create a number of different workflows which Git works with. So friends, this session, this module will be of 5 hours. And with this, you are going to learn how to manage your code, the code which developers write, the code many a times which you will write, your scripts which you are going to put on being a DevOps team member, being a DevOps engineer. Okay, and next we will talk about continuous integration and continuous delivery. So friends, it's not only creation of script which is going to help you. You must have to have must know how to integrate with any of the newly created code or newly created script, how to integrate your existing script with newly created script. And that is what we are going to talk about in this session. We will create new script, we will integrate it in a continuous fashion, in an automated fashion, and to deploy it in a framework. And for that, we are going to use a Hudson based tool to which we call as Jenkins. Other vendors are also there, other competitors are also there, like Bamboo is there, we do have Travis CI, but Jenkins always gets an edge. It's open source, it's quite easy to use, it's very user friendly, and got huge user base around the globe, which makes Jenkins one of the widely used tool in lots of Silicon Valley company. Okay, so with this, we are going to talk about what Jenkins is. And friends, any of the tool is good till the time it's going to provide you ample amount of security, right? So you won't like to use any of the tool which is insecure, which is not going to provide you good amount of security. And that is what we are going to talk about in this session. How to enable security in Jenkins, how Jenkins is going to help secure your data. Also, we'll get to know about user management, because you don't want to create individual users in any of the tool. Till now, perhaps while you are logging in into any of the platform, you would have created single user manually. But with Jenkins, you will get to know about how to integrate it with Active Directory, or how to integrate it with LDAP, or wide variety of automated user management platforms which any of the organization uses every now and then. Also, With this, you will get to know about how to create a role-based access control, to which in short we call as RBAC. I'm going to cover that part also, how to have a role-based access control method with Jenkins. We'll talk about Jenkins plugins. We'll create Jenkins jobs. Different kind of jobs are there, though keeping your mindset, your Windows based mindset in mind. Jenkins offers one more feature, to which we call as freestyle job. I'm going to cover that part as well, wherein with freestyle job you are going to get similar sort of interface like the way you get in Windows. You just choose option, you will have a drop down, click next, next, and next, and you will be able to create a job. Will learn that part also. Also, friends, from this point onwards, I'm going to get into certain scripting which we normally use in DevOps, Groovy script, by using which we'll be able to create Jenkins pipeline jobs we'll create by using Groovy scripting. With Groovy scripting, which will be Groovy scripting based extension, will create Jenkins pipeline jobs. Wide variety of Jenkins pipeline jobs are there, which we are going to talk about. So with this, friends, you will get to know about continuous integration, continuous delivery, continuous deployment, and I'm pretty much sure you must have questions in your mind. What actually makes it continuous, right? Continuous integration. Integration is normal generic term. Even a continuous is normal generic term. But what actually we achieve by merging continuous and integration together? What actually we achieve by merging continuous and delivery together, that we are going to learn about in this session. Okay, and with this session, friends, you will also be able to learn how Jenkins acts as a linchpin, how Jenkins is going to bind all the tools which you are going to learn in this session. Let it be shell scripting, let it be Python, let it be AWS, let it be Azure, let it be any of the tool which we are going to cover in this session. Jenkins is going to bind everything together. We are going to talk about that also by using its plugin management component. Next, very important feature, very important tool we are going to talk about is Ansible, which is a very important feature of software development lifecycle. Friends, nowadays, any of the organizations that you think about will have hundreds, thousands of servers. Nobody want to work on servers individually, one server at a time. Let it be deployment of a servers. I'm pretty much sure that you'd have seen many times some pop-up generates. In case if you are already in standards, many times you'd have seen that some pop-up generates, some pop-up comes in your machine, says that okay fine, this software is going to install at this and this and this time. Or maybe you would have seen this in your TV also, some package is going to upgrade in your TV at this and this and this time. How that happens, how that broadcast and goes to wide variety of servers, how does it even reaches to wide variety of regions? That is by using certain tool, to which we call as configuration management tool. Yes, it's a kind of anomaly, it's a kind of it's a kind of reaction which people gives whenever they listen about configuration management tool, says that okay fine, configuration management tool is a infrastructure as a code. Yes, it is infrastructure as a code, friends, because infrastructure as a code is very generic term. Anything which you can create by using code is called infrastructure as a code. Anything which is going to help you to develop your infrastructure in a more automated fashion, in more coded fashion, is called infrastructure as a code. With this module, friends, we are going to talk about that. You're going to learn about one of the most widely used infrastructure as a code, which is Ansible, which is widely used in IT industry now. There are other competitors also, like the way we talked about competitors of Jenkins, wherein in Jenkins we learned that okay fine, Jenkins have competitor in the form of Bamboo or Jared or Travis CI. Similarly, and Ansible do have their competitors. Puppet is there, Chef is there. We do have SaltStack. Wide variety of competitors are there for Ansible. But why Ansible? What makes Ansible different from any other competitor? What is the distinguished feature of Ansible because of which Ansible is so famous and widely used in all the industries now? We'll talk about that. Friends, with this module, I'm going to start showing one fantastic form of scripting format, to which we call as YAML. I'm pretty much sure that by now you would have heard about HTML, XML a lot. But with this, I'm going to show you how to start working on one more syntax oriented, highly idempotent, highly syntax oriented scripting language to which we call as YAML. And that is where we'll learn how to write Ansible playbooks, Ansible automated script file. We'll get to know about how to create ad hoc commands, how to write ad hoc commands, what are the various sort of framework which Ansible offers to their customers, how and by using Ansible we will be able to control many of the servers. Here I'm going to show you one more method of connecting one server to another in an automated fashion by using SSH protocol. SSH, one of the widely used protocol for multiple servers now. We do have wide variety of protocols. I'm pretty much sure you would have heard about SCP, you would have heard about SSL. SSH is one of the other form, which is a highly secure one, which works on port number 22. We are going to talk about that in this session. Okay, friends, and now with this module, we are going to talk about containerization. This will be the module which will give you in-depth knowledge of what a containerization is, how we will create a container, what you are going to achieve with a container. When you are creating a container, how you are going to deploy your applications there. Can you deploy the only existing container or only the latest application in the container, or can you also deploy your legacy application into the container? We are going to talk about that, how containers are beneficial when we compare that with any of the virtual machine. What is the difference in between virtualization and containerization? How containers are created, how containers take such lesser space than virtual machines, how to log in into the container, what is the life cycle of container. Lots of things are there, friends, in containers. I still remember nearly 6 years back, container was pretty much a new concept. But now, friends, any of the organization talks about microservices, right? I'm pretty much sure you would have heard about this term, monolithic services, microservices. With containerization, with Docker as a tool, we have learned, the world has learned how to move from monolithic framework to microservices framework. And with this module, friends, we are going to talk about that. With this module, we are going to learn how to create that framework. With this module, friends, we are going to learn how to create those microservices framework. We will talk about how to perform various sort of updates. I'm pretty much sure that you would have seen Google Doodle every day. All the Google pages changes, Google Doodle changes every day, or let it be any of the social website which we log in every day. You will see some enhancement, some new feature is added. Let it be Facebook, let it be Twitter, let it be your WhatsApp. So many new features are added every now and then. How do you think that happens? How do you think that it's deployed every now and then without you experiencing any downtime? Have you ever felt any slowness when any new feature is deployed in Facebook? Have you ever felt any slowness when a new feature is deployed in WhatsApp? No. How it happens? It all happens by using containerization, friends. And the magic of containerization we are going to talk about in this specific module. This module will be of 6 hours long, wherein in this 6 hours we are going to talk about container, we are going to talk about Docker in much detailed manner. Next section will be, friends, to learn about Kubernetes, a very essential, very significant and highly demand tool in market. If you learn about Kubernetes, certainly your salary, a name of Kubernetes, definition of Kubernetes, mention of Kubernetes in your profile with various sort of use cases or various sort of, say, projects which you worked, which is deployed, which is using Kubernetes in it, is going to help you to get salary hike essentially. Now with this Kubernetes framework, friends, which will be 8 hours long, we are going to learn how to create Kubernetes architecture, how to set up Kubernetes, how Kubernetes can be used in various sort of cloud platforms, what we are going to have on Kubernetes, various sort of planes, control plane, data plane. We are going to create those planes. We are going to talk about various sort of APIs, which is application programming interface, how those APIs, API objects is linked with Kubernetes. We are going to talk about that. Also, we will talk about how to expose your application to end user. Friends, you open any website, you do not expect to see any of the, say, coded or scripted page opens, and you just brainstorm and try to understand, okay, fine, which part of place I will get into look for any item or commodity. You don't expect that. Whenever you put in any of the URL in your browser, you expect to open any of the fancy page which have detailed information about what actually you are looking for, right? And how that those applications are exposed to end users. And have you ever thought, friends, whenever you put any domain in URL, how in browser, how that domain is actually formed, right? How how even any of the domain do have any IP at the background, even though any domain do have any port opening on the server at the background, it's not reflecting to you, it doesn't come in that form to you. How only just the domain reaches to you, and how everything is hidden at the back end. We are going to talk about that in this session, friends. We are going to have those IPs, we'll have those port, and we are going to map those ports along with domains in this session, and we will create our own application. I do have certain use cases uh, which is based on real-time industry framework, which we'll be covering in this session, in this specific module. And friends, after Terraform, sorry, after Kubernetes, we will talk about Terraform. With Terraform, we will learn about infrastructure as a code. Friends, now if you have to create any of the, say, virtual machine, or if I ask you to create any of the virtual machine there on Cloud Vendor, it's pretty much easy. If somebody asks you to create hundreds of virtual machines on any of the cloud platform, going manually with different sort of configuration in all the 100 virtual machine, it will be a tedious task for you. How infrastructure as a code is going to help your life easy, how it's going to automate entire framework of deploying or provisioning different sort of or heterogeneous sort of framework, heterogeneous sort of infrastructure in an automated fashion, we are going to talk about in this session, friends. Now, friends, with Terraform, we will also try to learn more about logic. Like the way I said you, we are going to we are not going to learn about how to use Terraform, but we are going to learn about how to use Terraform in heterogeneous framework, in framework wherein you might have to have different sort of resources created. And this is quite an evident scenario which you are going to face being a part of enterprise level organization, friends. You must have to create heterogeneous type of resources for your organization based on different requirements which comes from different teams. How by using Terraform you will be able to achieve that, how Terraform is going to work along with AWS cloud, we are going to talk about that also. Now, friends, in Terraform too, we create multiple layers of deployment, multiple layers of delivery. With that, with this module, we are going to talk about how to create those multiple layers, how to create those multiple levels of deployment framework. Now, with this, we will also learn about how to maintain backend of a Terraform, because eventually when you are creating any resources, you want those resources to be remembered somewhere, right? And that we are going to talk about by having a backend of Terraform, which will be covered in this module. So friends, as of now, we spoke about various sort of modules. We started from scripting framework. We started from a understanding, a basic understanding of what Linux is about. We just gradually moved into Python as the scripting language, Python as the coding language. Post that, we moved into cloud. After that, we started looking into DevOps. It's in a serial, it's in a serial fashion. It's in a serial order wherein you get to know about coding first, you get to know about scripting first, and after that you move into a methodology which will be deploying resources, which will be creating resources in more secure manner for sure, in automated fashion for sure, by using a pipeline wherein completion of one stage triggers another stage. Now, friends, in any of the software development lifecycle, it's pretty much important to have monitoring component also. Without monitoring, any of the component is not going to work. Any of the component is not going to work properly without a monitoring feature. Any of the monitoring feature is pretty much essential for organization to work properly, work seamlessly. And the monitoring could be in a reacted framework, or could be in reactive framework, or could be in proactive framework. Various sort of tools are there which can be used, which we normally use for monitoring purposes. Prometheus and Grafana are widely used tool. Many other competitors are there in market. ELK is one there. We do have Nagios too. But friends, the framework, the architecture, the display or dashboard which Prometheus and Grafana offers to their customers is is widely used by organization. Now friends, a software development life cycle we are talking about when development happens, when development begins, moving to the stage where testing happens, moving to the stage where scanning happens, because we don't want to have only software development life cycle, but also to impose security on top of software development life cycle at various stages, so that by the time our software is actually created, by the time our software is actually released and ready for production deployment, it's secure. Not only secure on the basis of code which is developed, on the basis of not only external, not any of the external libraries which is used there in my code, but also when the code is deployed to production environment, even though any of the hackers try to breach data, my internal security, my code security can just generate an alarm, so that developers, so that internal security team of any organization knows that an attack is about to happen, right? That feature is provided by monitoring. That feature is provided by Prometheus and Grafana. Not only that, friends, monitoring is an essential component, and nowadays a very important component for any organization. None of the organization at any point of time want to have downtime. With monitoring you can control that. With monitoring you can get to know about CPU utilization. Say any of the virtual machine which you do have is about to reach to its threshold, it generates alarms, it generates notification to at various stages. It generates different sort of notification at various stages, so that in case if you have to handle your security risks, in case if you have to handle such sort of scenarios, you can easily go ahead and do that, right? So with this module, friends, which will be a 6 hours long module, we'll get to know about how to configure Prometheus, how to set up Prometheus, how to install Prometheus, how to install Grafana, how to configure Grafana, how to create dashboards in Prometheus and Grafana, what are various sort of queries which we can write in Prometheus and Grafana, based on which scrapping can happen, based on which data can be pulled in, and it can be displayed in dashboard, so that eventually it reaches out to dashboards, eventually it reaches out to all the customers, who all the organizations who are exposing their application, which reaches out to customers, right? So friends, this is all about all the modules which we are offering with master program of DevOps, right? Wherein we are going to cover almost everything which will help you to gain knowledge, which will help you to change your mindset from a traditional approach of any of the deployment, of a manual approach of deployment to an automated way of deployment. All right, friends, I'll halt here. Anyone has any questions? I know you'll have a bunch of questions. That's fine. We're going to talk about that in our upcoming sessions. But any of the quick overview which I can give you now.
Hello.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, Raghavendra here. I just wanted to ask, Miss, is GCP a part of this course?
Is this Raghavendra?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So sorry, what is your question, Raghavendra?
Is GCP is a part of the course?
GCP. No,
Google Cloud
GCP.
Platform?
GCP we are not covering in this
Oh,
course, Raghavendra.
okay.
Another question I can see is here. Gaurav asks how much of programming language proficiency is required for this. Do we need crazy skills on coding? What language is recommended? So just to answer you, Gaurav, no, we don't need crazy programming skills. You know, to be a developer, to be a DevOps engineer, you just have to have ample amount of knowledge and automation level of knowledge to work good, to perform well in DevOps framework, to fit in into DevOps framework. Now, how much, which language to use, and that is where we are covering Linux, Shell, and Python, because these are the languages which we normally use to write any of the script. Script could be of any sort. Script could be creation of users at multiple places. Script could be deploying any of the packages at multiple places. Script could be creation of any file or read inputs of any file at multiple places, right? So these all can be done by using these two widely used tool, scripting language, which is Shell and Python. As I said, you don't need to be expert, but yes, you should have automated automation scripting level of knowledge, which we are going to cover in this session. Anyone else? Any other question? Okay. So if you don't have any question, thank you, Gaurav. Over to you.
Thank you, Sumit. And guys, one more thing. This is a weekdays batch, like a Monday to Friday. 8:30 is the time what we decided. Rest within next week we are gonna start with this batch. I'll just convey the final dates on the emails. Okay. Thanks, Sumit, for the session.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.